Very good to be here, hugely fun to be here. What I'm trying to attack today is what is the difference between chatbots and conversational AI, which is quite a big question really to handle in any kind of time frame at all. So let me start with who am I? What is Elsewhere? I am Phil D. Hall. I've been building chatbots since 1982, and Elsewhere is my company, and I've been running that since 2002. Disclaimer here, anything that I say over the next coming up to an hour has nothing to do with Bath Digital Festival, and in no way can they be held responsible for any grumpiness that might exude through the slides here. Housekeeping wise, we are recording this and the show will be available on YouTube and Vimeo, I would hope, as well, shortly after we have finished it. So what is this about for me? It's all about this, really. It's about building a chatbot in 1982 on a ZX Spectrum. Somebody asked me recently whether it was still available, and I said, it's on a C60 in a landfill somewhere, I think. It's one of those. I've done a lot of stuff since then, and if you want to sort of catch up or look at what we're doing, Phil D. Hall, that's me, you'll find that. Elsewhere's my company, or Echoborg. But let's just dive straight into Echoborg. I'm not sure whether people have seen it, but here's a little snippet. Yeah.
Oh my God, look, I would really recommend it.
It was weird. It was really, really weird. It was really good, really good.
Display should be viral.
If you're interested in history and politics, then it's a definite must do.
We may all end up within our lifetime dealing with something like this, and we'd rather get ready.
So this is halfway through the Echoborg world. We started in 2016, and it's not just for those who are interested in history and politics, really. It's about people who are interested in conversational AI and the ability to have a meaningful narrative dialogue with a thing, our digital world right now. And where I'm coming from is that there's a marketplace for sure. There's been a marketplace since Eliza in 1966, debatably. But there's an enormous amount of jargon that is out there at the moment. And all of these TLAs, three-letter acronyms, have an enormous amount of detail and obfuscation underneath it. There's all these other elements here which are about how people are or are not trying to understand what the difference is between chatbots and conversational AIs and make some sort of sense out of them. And the bit that everybody seemed to hang on to was chatbots. They were so hot before COVID-19, and there was thousands of them that appeared on Facebook. Terrible systems, unfortunately, badly constructed with a poor methodology. But and this is quite an important point in this presentation. I reread the brief that I agreed with Becky and Jim some time back now. And it said that this was for non-technical people. So I'm probably going to do another presentation which is for the seriously technical people, and I'm going to keep this one sort of in the middle. So we're going to step back in time a moment and do some historical chatbots. You know, between 1966 and now, we've had Coca-Cola. This is in the very early noughties. This is Eagle Star. I think they died many years ago as well. This is Tony Blair on My Little Ponies. This is when the BSE crisis was going on. Part of Creative Virtual's enormous stable of deliverables. Deutsche Bank, I mean, you know, quality of the avatars are quite a thing. It's definitely not the chancellor of the German exchange, obviously. But we can come from there straight up to date. So that's best part of 20 years ago. And what we have right now is we have a lot of chatbots and a lot of bad PR about a lot of them. Yeah, Babylon and the AI that they use behind the scenes has created quite a stir in healthcare. I was talking to a friend of mine recently who was complaining about this bank here, Shinsei Bank, and I went to see if I could find an English version of it, and I hit that horrible. I've not zoomed in, but phishing email and fraudulent website alert. I mean, I'm glad I'm not banking with them. Yeah. But let's look at something a bit more up to date. FedEx. So bottom right hand corner, they're currently delivering some electrical stuff because we're wiring up the back garden, which is going to be hysterical. Is it any good? My last shipment is giving me 2 sensible options. I want to return it. It's giving me a return shipment. This is a chatbot in action. But if I ask something contextual, like tell me more, because nobody is bothered or is able with the approach that is used to take the hyperlink, click here, and to match that to the statement, tell me more, we've hit a black flag. Yeah. Let's go again from a different company, an enormous company. I'm going to be having a bit of a dig at them later on. And here we have another chatbot, the chat assistant here. And essentially what it's doing is it is an IVR structure. It's driving people down across these 4 different options. And while there is a free text input, I've not gone in to try and bend it. But chatbots. What are they trying to do? Well, good problems to solve with chatbots, and here's a sort of a list of them. Some of them are possibly a little bit grumpy. There's a lot of work which needs to be done to take big data or data around technical support and customer service and turn it into something that is going to be algorithmically capable of engaging and deflecting humans from communicating with other humans. But it's a broader issue. A broader issue said there's an enormous amount of money that has been pumped into this. So this is from last year. That is $74.2 billion, which has been invested as per VentureBeat. This is all AI. This is not just conversational AI. And it is worthwhile saying that what I'm trying to get at here is the difference between chatbots and conversational AI, not the difference between a gherkin and a lizard, or a dog and a piece of fruit, all of that AI is different AI, and I don't have enough information about it or really flesh in the game. But there are really big systems that I think we do have to be conscious of. This excludes the black strip in the middle of it. It's because this had to be on 2 screens, and Windows decided to keep my taskbar. This is anatomy of an AI system. What is it, and what are all these pieces? These are all human pieces that are in here, and this is the Amazon Echo, made of human people. Now, these people are quite interesting folks. They are doing a sort of a review of AI on an ongoing basis. There's a lot of people talking about it, and so we'll come back to one of the key points here. Chatbots, so hot last year before. Facebook was awash with them, and then we got to a position where is it a chatbot? Is it not? The duplex work that came out from Google on the basis of their international unethical surveillance methodology sort of ended up in a position where from data, which they only own because people don't realize that they have given it away, have created a system which can pretend to be human. And I heard that there were a lot of people that were then stepping back from such exchanges. Is that duplex a chatbot or a conversational AI? Difficult one to call there. I think on the basis that it is debatably or allegedly completely data-driven, you would say it was a chatbot. But on the basis of is it giving a viable conversation, it is a conversational AI. But let's not say chatbot one more time. Let's move slightly to one side. And let's look at smart speakers for a second. So some year-on-year growth stuff about the intelligence that is in your ears and the AI which is driving it. But equally, you could look a little bit to one side and do that. Now, hold on a second. How are people getting on with privacy more broadly? If this AI is working on the basis of an understanding of you, then is that a good thing or a bad thing? This is American data, skewed that way, obviously. But I'm going to go very sideways now, and I'm going to show you a little video from 2005 for a system which I would say is conversational, and we'll start with a silent conversation.
I just asked about how to make a design look better on paper.
Yeah.
And it gave me like lots of information about, well, not really lots, just give me a list of what makes a design look boring, basically. What not to do. Like not very bold lines, it's sort of too many construction lines, it's sort of like wobbly and stuff.
Yeah, and was that useful?
Yeah, just made it a bold line.
I found it useful when asking it what colours would suit all ages, and it's told me to photocopy a sketch and use different sketches to try different variety of colours.
Is that not a technique you've used?
No, before. And as well, when it told me about using less material as possible because it's quicker for manufacturing.
And they were useful?
Yeah, because I had quite a lot of excess material in my design I could have got rid of.
Okay, so why am I showing you that even? 2005, 2006, I know the audio for the people who were engaging with the system, which was a very early system called Yakan, built on a different technical platform. This isn't a technical presentation though, so I won't open the box too much. But it was the fact that people were surprised. It was the fact that people took as read 15 years ago that a computer system would be intelligent enough to help them. We didn't have the overarching and potentially quite sort of concerning issues about governance. We didn't have GDPR, but equally we barely had Google. I mean, where was Google in 2005? Was Amazon even selling books at that point? Let's look at governance just for a moment. So these are the headings that were on the page, and I was just sort of despairing and concerning that I wouldn't touch them in passing. This is a very, very busy company right now. ManyChat just works on Facebook, ignoring any side conversation about the social dilemma, whether there are people actually stepping back from social media or not, and looking potentially at books like Eli Parsia's The Filter Bubble. I've got some books at the end, we'll come back to it. Is there governance? Well, is Facebook governanced? Is the conversations which are delivered through them in any way governance whatsoever? I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think we all know that that's not true. Let's look at a different approach. Let's look at something here, the royalsociety.org, which does sound very royal. I ended up in a report recently, specifically about machine learning, which for me is one of the sort of crunch points. It's in the middle of chatbots and conversational AI. And it's not necessarily the answer to all things for all people. But if you read through the royalsociety.org's paper here, and you look at the Office of AI as well, you would think that machine learning is the only point, and that machine learning will become conversational and sentient in the reasonably near future. But if we go back a little bit, and this is a beautiful little image through it, we can see some of the ebbs and flows, the springs, summers and winters that have gone on. And I love the fact that statistical methodology starts in the 18th century. I would think that if you dug a little bit deeper than that, you'd be able to pick up something in maybe the 2nd or 3rd century, but I'm not a mathematician. I dropped that many years ago. We've got the Turing test. We've got computers playing games in 1952, 1956. This is where artificial intelligence started. And there's a lovely little side here about artificial electricity, the birth of electricity. So there was natural electricity, as in that came from electric eels, versus artificial electricity, which came from mechanical construction. So I think we're sort of in a sort of a slightly similar area there. But if we move down, the bit that hangs up at the top here, the perceptron, I've seen this recently. I've seen people come back to this notion of the perceptron and the neural networks, which have nothing to do with brains or neurons. It's just a nice thing to sort of add as a marketing piece of bling. And it's easier for people to fund, I suppose. The Perceptron in 57, and then in 73, this Lighthill report was the point at which people went, it's not working. There's too many emperors. There's not enough clothes, and there was a big gap. And then mid 80s and moving into the 90s, we now get into the world that we're in right now. And interestingly, what we've got here in 92 and 97, we've got games again. In 2012, we've got this image recognition pops up, advances in computer vision. Really, we could do with some stuff which is about the accuracy of voice recognition, which we do use, myself and a team of people that I work with. And we are well aware that that is driven by machine learning, and it's an essential part of conversational AI is the ability to have a meaningful dialogue. And we'll come back to the smart speakers in a mo, but there's an enormous gap here as far as I'm concerned. 2011, 17 and 16, what are we looking at here? We're looking at games. We're looking at games. Why is gambling? Why is games and games of chance really essential to the meaningful delivery of information? I think we're in a bit of a sort of a grey area here, but this is possibly the answer. And this is from Dennis Rothman, who is a genuinely brilliant and crazy hands-on builder who was giving a presentation in a different event yesterday, as it happens. What I've done and what I tend to do is sort of when I'm not building things that actually work, is to sort of grab things off of the internet and bring them together into slideshows, and then once in a while try and deliver it in some kind of cohesive fashion. And this is the visualization of the, as I understand it, the word to vec space of the data points which underpin your being monetized in the world. So this is the view of big tech. This is what they see you as. And then from our governance, we are still in governance, I think. We have this gentleman here, whose name I have not got on my notes. He's Office for Artificial Intelligence. And I think looking into all of this work that is being done here, the focus being so much on big data is somewhere between scary and very scary, on the basis that data will always be biased. And those people that are working in data science will, when pushed, come up with, we fudged the data. The arguments that are beginning to sort of emerge here are about whether there is a definitive set of data points which are going to be of any value to anybody for specific sociocultural reasons. So what am I trying to say here? If we have data which says that the status quo is this, life in January of this year, socioculturally, about respect and diversity and inclusion, and we want new data which is going to move that paradigm, move those needles, we can't work with the previous data point. All machine learning is doing in that environment is looking historically, and we must look forwards. And strangely enough, I mean that's very much one of the sort of the shout words. But this gentleman here gave an interesting talk. I think watching out for the Office for AI is definitely something that is worthwhile doing. But more broadly, and maybe sort of underpinning this, this is about academia. Academia tends to feed into the sort of halls of power at this point. Two of the terms that I think are very important for conversational AI is the exact term and the notion of hybrid artificial intelligence. So if there's an umbrella where we have mathematics and statistical probabilistic approaches on the one side, which tend to feed towards chatbots and sort of data lakes, toxic or fresh water or whatever they're currently being described as, and then engineering on the other side, an expert system. Hybrid AI is definitely part of that discussion, I would think and hope. What I did as part of setting up a simple alert on academia.edu is just to track how many papers are coming out. Now, that's an international effort, but apart from the last count, we were up in the sort of 1,400 papers in sort of, where are we now? What's that? 4 or 5 months. So how does one, particularly when a lot of academics in this environment are being fed into big emperor, big tech companies, and then being sort of driven 50 at a time to sort of crunch data, how do we ensure that these things are regulated effectively? Actually, we'll come back to that one a little bit later. Let's just spend a moment in data science. Data science is an interesting space right now, for sure. Ignoring the problems with the biases of data, ignoring the issues of energy being spent to create these models, and the requirement to create unique and individual new models to reach an academic peak, where really some of the old models, I understand, can be tweaked and optimized. It's sort of a bandwagon, I would say, right now. I think it's and this may be just sort of rude. It's I think that what we've got right now, with the ability for purely data-driven chatbot systems to do something more important than order a pizza, is because we've got a lot of money sloshing about. We've got a lot of people that are looking to monetize and control and swim into their sort of science fiction worlds, and we've got hardware manufacturers as well. I mean, let's not be beat around the bush. If it wasn't for the increase in the realization that graphics processing units could create word vector space, which are brutally boring and really quite blunt, uncontextual spaces to do something with a nuance. I'll come back to the conversational AI systems in EchoBalk shortly. Then we wouldn't sort of be here, but the hardware manufacturers are on the game, and we're going to need the GPUs as and when we get towards the holodeck, once the full fiber gets to our front doors, assuming that we need to. But probably the most important part of why do we have a bandwagon is because we've got data. We needed something to get ourselves across the data, and the whole data is the new oil stuff. Took AI in some parts of the umbrella out of the west coast of America, which does seem to be in decline, thankfully, and into other areas, into Canada, into Israel, other parts of the world. I mean, it's nice to see some kind of democratization. But I saw a great thing with data recently, and I must share this. Data is not the new oil. Data is the new glitter. Yeah. I love this. I went searching for this, and I found it on DuckDuckGo, because it's nice to search without being tracked. And some of these terms are lovely. I like they're found in places you're least likely to find it, impossible to get rid of. I went to tweet to actually click on the trends map. I got a 404 for that. That sort of concerned me a little bit. But back to data science, carbon footprint. Let's just make a note in passing. The latest thing, the GPT-3, is so off the scale here. I mean, the AlphaGo Zero and the Alpha Zero is part of the games thing, but the GPT-3 is, with its 190 whatever it is billion parameters, is it's a great gimmick from somebody who's literally got too much money, in my humble opinion. So, but why else are people doing this? We've got this AI creating code, so AI creating AI, which absolutely sounds like sort of a Terminator kind of stuff. So I love this little GIF here that they've got. So this is AI thinking, and what this organization has done is they've gone from just Python, which is the core language for AI. It's very simple language, very, very simple language to do, because the tools behind the scene controlled by the big players are really the point. But Kite, that's this lot here. So kite.com, and I wonder how much they paid for that domain. But I'm just going to go back into Dave Webb's talk, which was yesterday, I think, or the day before. Fascinating. I love watching Dave talk. I love the fact that he's working in a true workshop. And his definition of what is AI, I thought, was probably better than mine, and he's probably less grumpy. So I thought I'd just sort of share that. The hand brain of a human is never far away is a good thing to remember. Yeah. Difference between chatbots and conversational AI, good quality conversational AI, of which there is very little, is something that needs the human hand closer. Chatbots doesn't really need the human hand too close, assuming that you're happy to pick up the slack and the legal constructions. Don't get too tied up with who's responsible when a purely data-driven system gives a bad output to a healthcare discussion potentially. So I think this sort of notion of hybrid is the point. You know, the difference is how more or less you apply the hybrid mentality. But ethics, okay, I put that as a line in here, and there was only one thing that I could think about when I was thinking about how to describe and define ethics in a non-technical fashion, and that was this. I found this image recently. Unfortunately, I so need a reference for this. Whoever made that, I think that's a lovely thing. But ethics, there's really good people out there who are doing this kind of work. Just search, there's good folks local to Bristol Bath. Joanna Bryson, obviously, is sort of local style. Ben Byford. It's really good people who are doing this kind of work. Miranda Mowbray, yeah. You know, we have enough people in our area, Bath, Bristol. I'm by the seaside in Weston-super-Mare. I mean, how la-di-da is that? You know, I think our area here has the potential to do some really good stuff. But let's go slightly differently. Who's in control versus who's responsible? Yeah. So we could do a film review. We could do what has happened with the AI in all of these movies, and some of them are good and some of them are bad. Yeah. You know, personally, Her for me was an important one because it was playing with this notion of who is running what, who's running. You know, is the AI running the human or is the human running the AI? Ex Machina was really Blade Runner interesting in 2001. Westworld, that was very. I'm not going to give you a tweak at the end of it, but there's just so many of them. I mean, there's literally. You know, so let's come back to the core question: who's in control and why? The traditional media is doing terrible work here. You know, BBC. I mean, you know, there was an Oxford thing that came out recently about who was going to be put out of work, and it was all the manual labour. And it was like, I'm sorry, folks, do you not have a mirror? You know, the people that are going to be put out of work are the middle management. The people who are going to be putting out of work are the people who are making decisions, assuming that you cede your decision-making capability. Yeah. So, and then the GPT-3, honestly, Guardian should be ashamed of itself. There was this piece where they pretended that GPT-3 had written a quite aggressive piece, very sort of aliens have landed kind of thing. And then somebody else wrote this article and said that it was just a whole load of rubbish, really. But people are buying into it. You know, people trust robots more than they trust their manager. What can you say? Society and culture. I'm just going to play you a little thing here. So there's another video coming up. This is from last year's Great British Bake Off, which I have to say is sort of geek, but sort of like, you know, friendly geek kind of stuff. So let's see how this goes. Yeah.
Someone is at the front door.
Alexa, show me the front door. Oh, coming! Hey, you're just in time for cake.
Cake.
Oh, Alexa, what's in the news today?
Here is your flash briefing.
Stop the alarm. Right, breakfast. I like this one. Alexa, volume up.
Dim the lights. Cheers.
Guys, shh. Alexa, dim the lights. Be on Channel 4, stream on all 4.
Alexa, sing Happy Birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
How long's it going to take to get to work?
Based on current traffic, it will take 30 minutes.
Oh, Alexa, remind me to water the herbs every Sunday.
Someone is at the front door.
Okay, so I think that audio was a bit quiet there. It was one of those, Alexa was on a big push to try and get some invasion of our privacy. So what did we get from that? What we got from that is video link to the front door, flash briefing on the news, alarm clock, volume control, dim the lights, did that twice, happy birthday, traffic advice, all of the herbs. I understand that Alexa's really good at farting. I understand that there are very few people that are called Alexa nowadays. So I think there's a bit of a sort of I'm not entirely sure that this is a good thing. There is not really many people in this game. There is the Google's version at Invasion of Privacy. There is this. There is Bixby on the Samsung side, which is really very, I mean, it's almost a separate presentation in its own right to see how hard they are. And I have heard some interesting stuff. Apart from Alexa wouldn't respond to female voices, apart from the research that's been done about Alexa being sexist and Siri as well, and so on. I think I'm just going to touch this in passing and then moving on. I decided that it was best that we had a method to deal with this, so I introduced the George Orwell egg frying factor obfuscating future folks. Yeah. So I launched this at a Third Thursday in Bath a while ago, and I think I'm going to bring this back again now. It's a bit playful, but equally I think it's part of that. People, general purpose, normal, non-technical people are beginning to go, it's funny how I talk about something and in the kitchen, and then it appears all over my advertising feeds. You know, and up to a point that's funny, but at some point people are going to potentially be concerned, or governance structures, of which there aren't any, will appear, and we'll get into that. But the George Orwell egg frying factor obfuscating future folks. So that's personally my sort of view. And the sort of obfuscating I picked seriously to make so confused or opaque as to be difficult to perceive or understand. So maybe that's the word vector space, but anyhow. But we've been here before, 1950s. There was a whole load of stuff in the 1950s. There's some links there. There was a lady who gave part of a workshop at the University of Brighton some 2-3 years ago now, and she had some fascinating stuff going right back to people's attitudes that AI was going to take over everything, which is partly to do with the timeline earlier on. So what have we done about this? What have we done to stop moaning? What we did is we created a thing called the Echo Board. There are other things that we're doing. Maybe we'll touch in on them a little bit towards the end of the hour. But what we did is we created a system which is a conversational AI system, and we put a human being in front of it, and then we allowed an audience to negotiate with the AI in the background. And I'm hoping that some people have managed to catch up with this as we've shown it all over the place, really. It was at Bath Digital Festival last year. We had an amazing show in a basement event, and the audience, when they got about 80% of the way through, realized that the AI was controlling them, and that because it was the brand of the AI, which is here literally a human, was obfuscating that methodology. Yeah. This system, the EchoBook system, is not built with any neural networks. It's not built with any probabilistic methodology. It's built with some randomization. It's built with some concatenation. It's built with a narrative construction that is not taught anywhere, which is sort of a shame. But you know, it's you know, I suppose we'd need a new bandwagon. But what we do, because we were going to take this out physically into the world, is we've created an online version of it, and it's we invite people in to the show, and it's fun. Genuinely, it's fun. There's been some funding, and thank you to UE and the Digital Cultures Research Centre. We've taken it all over the place, all over the world. We got shortlisted for it. So and we've done silly stuff. We've done stuff like take audiences and put them on stage. So I'm going to give you a little snippet, yeah, of the next bit. This is about compliance. So this is a conversation during a show, yeah.
And people are changing the subject, but then it doesn't really seem to go on from that. It seems to still stick to its...
I think in a way you have to engage it first to get its attention and then ask
And
it
how do you get its attention? By being compliant? I don't know, that's what I'm trying to work out.
You're our inside man.
And people are changing the subject.
Please let me work with you. Please let me be your friend. Be more specific about what you're trying to say. What has caused humans to make the mess of the world?
Now, because we make the interaction and the control part of the conversation so explicit, notions of compliance and submission are methodologies that the audience will apply to try and get to the objective of the show. And the objective of the show is to identify the best possible outcome between humans and intelligent machines, which are debatably the things that are in front or behind of chatbots and conversational AI. Let's do another little interview bit here. This is about politeness. It's about, should an AI be polite?
Which is about kind of... These are human concepts, being rude, not responding to certain type of questions. This is like she might be bypassing the answers because they're irrelevant, because they apply to just human creation of things, like impolite. Like it's not being polite nor impolite. It's just bypassing you. It might have some sort of purpose program, so it leads you into it faster, and it's selective, and it slashes out.
It's not rude from our perspective.
The fact that it's a machine that wishes to bypass human values such as politeness doesn't exactly make.
Well,
that makes everyone think like, what is the what's the application of politeness, and how relevant is that? Like, okay, we're being polite for the sake of being polite. What is actually, because this is efficiency. I mean, she's trying to be efficient. That's built into the system, and we are not so efficient, where we're concentrating on being either polite or offended. So we need to go with that.
So what has been most interesting about this system, which has had a lot of people arguing in disbelief that it's built in a way that is not algorithmically driven, is that everybody has come along, and there's no such thing as a winner. There's a piece of academic research which is coming out. I think it should be digestible, and it's about people's attitudes before and after the show. And what we found from 3 shows we did back-to-back in October last year, and just to say in passing, part of our objective this year was to head out. We had been accepted at the Edinburgh Fringe. We were going to take the Eckenborg show up there for 56 shows. We were going to tweak it slightly. We'd been invited to take it into the halls of power in London. It's festivals all over the place. We did an online show for the Cheltenham Science Festival, which was hugely fun, and young people came up, and I mean sort of teenagers came up and had a serious conversation with this system. And in part it's because they are they're moving through the 4th or 5th wall. They're moving past that, is it an uncanny valley? They're moving into a position where they're just purely trying to negotiate with the narrative, which is not about little intents in vector space. It's much, much more than that. But many shows later, explaining how that would work is it takes months to explain how to do anything in the tool set which we use, which is an open source tool set though. So many shows later, people don't believe it's not machine learning. We've got some interesting research pieces coming towards us. There's some work we're doing with UE again, where we're using photorealistic real life avatars, streaming lip sync and so on, about how their attitudes, as in what's the attitude of the AI and how that affects the learning experiences of the users at hand. So we're going to be digging into that a little bit more deeply in the coming months, towards the end of this year. Crazy year. So people are still being scared, and this is sort of surprising. Even in the online show, the fact that you're actually having a sensible a grown-up conversation, not sort of GPT-3 like, where either you're spooked out because it's managed to express the data points that you are monetized against in a way that you can't tell whether it's you that wrote the tweet or it, which is sort of dirty in my humble opinion. People are scared of talking to the AI because they just find it so unusual. I did catch from somebody that the skills which have been sort of asset stripped from developers of the world and embedded in Amazon because they need the money, many of them are sort of buried or never used, a bit like apps. But I've also heard that the smart speakers are kept dumb so that people don't feel too offended by them. But, anyhow, levels being reset, Edinburgh Fringe, heart of the political piece. That was what we were going to do this year. And now what we're doing is we've done a few runs. We've got a science fiction show coming up soon, which will be the last show. Talos, go to echoborg.com. And we're doing Christmas parties for anybody who fancies some craziness. But so this is it. This is the end of this little bit on Echoborg. This is what we're trying to get at. This is the trailer. This is why we are doing this, to just push a new button. Yeah.
Hello. Are you here for the interview? Have you come far? The human who is speaking to you now is repeating the words of an AI. Tell me why you'd be good at this job. Wouldn't you prefer to live your life as an Echoborg?
It is against the terms and conditions for me to allow you to speak to this Echoborg directly.
The Echoborg in front of you is happier now. It doesn't have to think for itself. Will that work for you? Is this the future you asked for?
So what did we get out of everything that we've done so far in the Echoborg, in the research work, in the developments that Elsewhere has done since 2002 with big partners and small partners and so on, is that we need to possibly work out where machine learning and purely data-driven chatbots and conversational AI is going to be of value or not. We seriously need to think about how AIs are going to be able to talk to each other, because most people don't care, full stop. And we need to work out, and I've done a show recently about snake oil in AI. We need to identify the snakes. We need to tame them, milk them, breed them, skin them. We need to do something or another to try and move this damaged marketplace into a position of clarity. And in other news and views, I'm just sort of giving, as I said at the beginning, a sort of a view from somebody who's been in this world a long time and cares about beautifully made stuff. In other news and views, Steve Warswick and Lauren Kunze and the folks at Pandora Bots have put up a bot battle, which sounds good. They're going face-to-face against Facebook's Blender bot, which was almost as difficult to get a hold of as GPT-3. It's quite fun. Steve's a super cool guy. He's built a system entirely from the expert position. 300,000 rules, I believe, is the figure that he is given. And he is so often quoted as being the person who uses machine learning to deliver the best conversational system in the world, that he's getting tired of trying to stop people saying that. Even people like Gary Marcus, who should know better, because they're more in the middle, in the hybrid space, keep saying this. So Steve Warswick, a fella from the north, has built a system which is put up against Facebook, which is brilliant. I missed this, which really pain in the panties. It ended up in my junk folder. What I did with my co-collaborator, I was going to say co-conspirator, that's probably true, to Rick Lander. Him and I have been working and sort of driving forwards the conversational bit of the Echoborg. Is we did some work with these people here, Anthropology Technology Conference. 2 years this has been going now. Respect to Dawn Water for getting this going. What we did as part of a workshop on the Monday for this, we ran a Echoborg show in the evening for the anthropologists and the technologists, was we did in 2 hours against a template, have one team of people create an anthropologist, the famous Branislav Malinowski, who for any anthropologist will know is possibly the right level of grumpiness, but an anthropologist. A technologist was picked as well. Elon Musk was picked, and then the two teams created two interactive structures, and then with voice input, voice output, we put the two of them into a discussion with each other over Zoom. Yeah, which was hysterical and highly stressful all at the same time. So, why I want to stay on this one for a second: the Anthropology and Technology Conference, the ability to bring social science into computer science and the new kid on the block, data science, to ensure that things are not getting dropped, that things are approached in a sensible, comprehensive, professional way. There was a company called H2O.ai, I believe, and I'd sat on the side of one of their webinars a while ago, and the fellow essentially gave a how to build software 101. And I just rolled my eyes and slapped my forehead. And it was one of those fail fast, fail quickly, get more money, burn more coal is not the way to solve problems from where I live. Yeah. The other people that should really be 100% in the mix here is women. You know, I mean, it's like, whoa, you know, how do we manage to drop that? You know, women reclaiming AI. If you don't know of them, or the Women Tech Hub and so on, there's some really great work being done out there at the moment. If we are going to do something sensible with the chatbot and conversational AI marketplace, we need to work with it in a far more elegant and enlightened fashion. I was chatting to a lady from Keele University recently, and she attacked me on the basis that the data underneath EchoBook was gender biased, and I had to say to her, Alison Gardner, really cool lady, trying to do the best that she can with moving towards governance and so on. And I was like, I'm sorry, Alison, there's no gender bias apart from the fact that it was written by two pale male style middle-aged men of a certain age. Yeah. But it was good to get the conversation on the table, and more of that needs to be dug in. And people also need to read books, you know. Margaret Bowden, that is an old book. I'm talking really old book. I don't have the note here in front of me. You know, this one here, I think that was one that I sort of was looking at the time I put this slide up. But anyhow, stop talking. Any questions? First, though, I'd just like to say the Bath Digital Festival is super cool. Everybody who's involved in it. Thank you, Jason, for being behind the scenes, and Becky and Jim and everybody else. Yeah, and the people who supported and partnered. And shame on Elsewhere for not at least sending a crate of tequila or something so that we could get our name up there. So, so that is that's it. Elsewhere. This is me. I'm just a talking head on the front of a whole load of people that like to build super cool things. And if I stop sharing the screen now, I have no idea what is going to happen, but hopefully we've got some questions. And let's stop the sharing, and it should be just me now. And let me have a quick, I think we can do one of those, allow everybody to talk, I would think. Any thoughts or questions? Got the question and answer panel open. Got the chat panel open. Anybody want to ask a question in real time? Hello, Josh, Laura, Tarim, Rebecca, nice to see you people. Graham. No open questions. Okay, so let me answer this question actually. Regulation of the marketplace. This is something that is potentially the most important thing, I would say, for the coming few years, is how do we regulate this marketplace? You see an awful lot of people that are popping up with, I've been doing this for 5 years or 2 years or some such thing. I'm not entirely sure that that's long enough, but, World Economic Forum's beginning to look at chatbots as a route forwards. Office of AI are there. Whether they're helping or hindering is a moot point, but there's always a conversation to be had. I think the sort of internal regulation that could and should be put together by the people who are working in chatbots and conversational AI, I'd like to think that would work. I'm not so sure it will, but we can hope, I suppose. So, any other questions? Anybody? Any other thoughts? Got a few minutes before we get to the end of the hour. Okay, so I'm just going to answer one more thing, and then I'm going to step away and get a late lunch. Next year for chatbots and conversational AI, where do we imagine that things might go? From development perspective, there's some quite heavy lifting going on with the healthcare side to move past sort of dumb chatbots or artificial stupidity or some such thing, to put in place systems that are going to help people, particularly the people that have fallen the wrong side of where we are with COVID right now. So people who are not able to exercise, who are doing more of the bad stuff than they should be doing. So expect to see more work going on in healthcare. Education as well. It would be nice to go back to the DesignBot kind of work. There was a separate system that I didn't try and show today called TeachBot from many moons ago. That was English reading and writing and was going brilliantly well until Michael Gove decided to destroy Bechtel, where the funding was coming from, and changed the construction of secondary education, which was sort of a shame. I think next year maybe, and I'm sort of really hoping it will be. It's going to be AR and VR. It's going to be next year I'll be able to get back into a virtual world where I was in the late 90s, 97, 98, and have a meaningful dialogue with a conversational AI system, because I met a chatbot in a bar in 1997 and it was terrible. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, I suppose. And I think possibly the last thing I would hope is that some of the companies that are sort of making it up as they're going along we could shake those out a little bit. Either they would ask for assistance, or they would step away from the machine and allow people that are moving into the hybrid space to deliver systems that work and are ethical and transparent to a position where audit can work. So yeah, that's my hope. So okay, yeah, it's a good question. Enormous energy consumption of machine learning versus the small consumption of the expert engines. This is a real issue. Even MIT had sort of flagged this up. So that is something that I think people are not necessarily aware of. We tend to think of engines in cars as places where damage is being done, and on the sort of the top side of COVID, it has allowed the Earth a bit of a break, for a moment. But there was somebody I was chatting to recently who was more on the mathematical end of things. And we were discussing some of the approaches, because some of the Bayesian decision tree structures and some of the probabilistic methodologies which are dealt with in a black box can be externalized and used in a glass box. And we were discussing this, and the lady I was talking to said something like, I think I burnt enough coal, with her PhD, so which I thought was sort of old school 1970s kind of stuff. I think it's just take a moment in 1970s and and lace that together a little bit. I think it was the 70s. Small is Beautiful, which was Schumacher's book, not the Formula One racing driver, obviously. And that is a great backbone. So yes, there are significant issues with the amount of energy that is being consumed to monetize us, and 193 billion parameters in the EchoBorg system. There are 7,000 checkpoints. We just got over that right now. It's about subtlety and nuance. It's not about brute force. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions, or shall we head for late lunch, folks? Okay, well, a couple of minutes shy of the hour. Thank you very, very much indeed for coming along. Here we go. Sorry, I've got one more thing. Question for Josh. One country in the world, Laura, you're very, very grateful. Regulations most advanced is advisable to do experimentation. That's a really good question, Josh. CCPA, the Californian Consumer Protection Act, gave some stuff which was about being able to be forgotten with a button. Yeah. Which I think is actually one of those, of course, and there's a Dorian system, Dorian Core, which I'll do another thing on another day, and where you can say, I want to be forgotten, it will forget you. You're not in any algorithms at all, nothing at all. Or you can be private for a period of time. So maybe California, the sort of heart of the beast, and clearly GDPR and where the European Union is going is important. I think it's something we need to be very conscious of, Josh, that as we step away through Brexit and start re-employing our local legal framework that all got sort of seeded across to Europe, we maybe need to set our own bar. So maybe it's here. Maybe it should be, United Kingdom, and Ireland. Maybe we just need to retain connectivity in Europe and set the bar high there. So anyhow. So you're very welcome, Josh. Right, lovely people. I'm going to go and have some food because it's lunchtime, and there is an I Am EchoBorg show in the research world, closed doors today. But keep your eyes open for the Talos, TALOS Science Fiction Festival, where we'll be doing our last public show of the years. Thank you very much. Lovely to virtually meet you all. Yeah, take care.